Well, it's my honor to be here again this year, and I thank the commander of our American Legion post, John Coy, for inviting me. And I also am greatly appreciative of all of you for being here today to join me in honoring those military men and women and their families who have served our country and gave the last full measure, as John mentioned. We're here to honor more than 1 million who have died serving our country and their fellow military family members. I never speak without recognizing the family members of those who are in the military. They really, in my opinion, do more for our country than perhaps the veterans themselves. They have to be home by themselves when we're off to war, doing everything, taking care of the children, the dog, maybe parents, working a job, and worrying to death about us. And we're there doing the things that, in most cases, that we enjoy doing. In my case, it was flying. And I really appreciate my wife and children and parents and aunts and uncles and grandparents for sticking with me and writing me when I was away from home. Really, these veterans who lost their lives serving their country, I don't like to say they gave their lives. There were a few of us who did give their lives. Most of the time it was to try to save their fellow battle buddies, like Ralph H. Johnson did when he jumped on a grenade in Vietnam and saved the other members in his fighting position, including Lieutenant Cleve McClary, who does a lot of speaking, and a lot of us know who he is. But it's imperative that we remember the sting of death never ends for the family members and best friends of our fallen. The heartbreak, intense physical and emotional pain, nausea, grief, loneliness, and permanent damage to the spirit and livelihood of families of the fallen is not really describable. Many of you have seen it because many of you are veterans and family members, and many of you are Gold Star families. But I've seen it, and I've never seen such grief. I would describe it this way: when the family is notified of the death of their Marine or soldier or sailor or airman or Coast Guardsman or merchant mariner. They convulse, many times faint, fall to the ground, crying and sobbing uncontrollably. Mucus running over their face uncontrollably. It's a sight that I don't want to see again, and I hope none of you have to see again. I, like so many soldiers, can tell you it's hard to be a survivor. I was seriously wounded in Vietnam, but I recovered from most of that, and I'm here today able to speak. I lost a lot of brain cells and an inch of one leg, but I'm still here. But the real pain of serving is losing your friends. And of course, I bear a great deal of grief and guilt for surviving them. And that's the natural order of things for veterans. We have a hard time dealing with losing them, and then we, for our whole life, have a hard time dealing with, well, why did I survive? Only God knows. The good thing is that every soldier and Marine and other service member who died serving, for every one of those, there are battle buddies, best friends, and of course family members who will never forget them. And our wonderful American Legion does a good job of trying to remind all Americans of the great sacrifice of military men and women and their families. It's, I, like you, when we talk about 1 million dead, that's too hard to understand. But I wanted to end talking today by sharing the story of two soldiers who I loved and continue to love dearly, who gave the last full measure in Vietnam and here in the United States. The first gentleman was a young infantryman with me in the Army and then warrant officer with me. He was in my flight class. He graduated #1 in the flight class. He was from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and he rose to the rank of chief warrant officer in the Army. And he flew what we called slick helicopters in Vietnam, the troop carrying and ammunition carrying and water carrying helicopters, the Huey, which most people know what that helicopter is. And then later he flew attack helicopters like I did. He was in another unit. But he and I went to Vietnam together. On the way there, we stopped in Oakland. The Army flew us out there, held us for a couple of days. We did what all young 19 and 20-year-old soldiers do. We tried to drink all the whiskey in Oakland and eat all the steaks. And he tried to chase all the ladies. I was married, so I didn't partake in that. But then we went to Vietnam together. He went to the 187th Assault Helicopter Company. I went to the 121st. And we kept in touch by writing letters to each other every week. And in the end of December, I received his last letter of 1968. And I didn't think much of it because there was not time to write sometimes. But then after a few weeks, I was worried. And finally, about a month later, I got a letter from the adjutant of that unit telling me that my dear friend, Jerry Markland, had been killed in action on December the 28th, 1968, flying a smoke-generating helicopter. And of course, it was part of the attack helicopter platoon, and it was armed with twin electric machine gun, M60 machine guns on one side and a single machine gun on the other. And they were called to lay smoke between U.S. infantry battalion that was pinned down in a rubber plantation near the Cambodian border by a larger than regimental sized North Vietnamese Army unit, and that had taken heavy casualties. And the commander of the battalion, the infantry battalion, asked the smoke ship if they would lay smoke between the enemy and them, and he would land his helicopter. He was in a helicopter overhead, and get out and take command of the unit and try to get them moving. And so my friend Jerry and the other pilot and two enlisted crew members, they made a smoke run below treetop level in the open between the enemy, right in front of the enemy, from east to west. Took a lot of heavy fire, a lot of bullet damage, but nobody was wounded. But it wasn't enough smoke. So they turned around and flew west to east. And when they did, the enemy had three 51 caliber heavy machine guns set up, and they shot that helicopter to pieces. And they headshot Jerry. He didn't die from the head wound, but the controls of the helicopter were shot out, and the helicopter just flew uncontrolled into the rubber trees, crashed, rolled, tumbled, and was totally destroyed. And Jerry lived a short while, actually in the arms of one of my other classmates, Jeff Marino. And that was the end of his life. Now, you know, that's the story of veterans and how we sometimes pay the ultimate price. But there's more to it. His family, his dad was a highly decorated Army Air Corps fighter pilot in the Second World War. He had encouraged Jerry to become a military aviator. His wife was terribly against that because the dad had been almost killed and terribly wounded in the Second World War. Well, over the mother's objections, Jerry went in. He was killed. When Jeff brought his body back home and he was buried, his wife immediately divorced her husband of 25 years. She loved him, but she couldn't forgive him for encouraging his son to go in the military. And they both died of broken hearts. That's what this is about, serving in the military. The second gentleman I want to tell you about is from Charleston. Close friend. He and I played football against each other. I'm from Charleston also. He went to St. Andrews High School. I went to Murray Vocational High School, and I played football for Charleston High. And we were friends. And then we went to the Baptist College together, which is now Charleston Southern. We became close friends. And then he joined the Army, and he talked to me and encouraged me to join the Army to go to flight school. And we went through flight school together, him as a first lieutenant and me as a warrant officer candidate. That son of a gun made 10 times the amount of money I did. I've always been mad about that, to whoever that recruiter was. But anyway, in Vietnam, we were stationed together in Vietnam in the same assault helicopter company. We flew troop transport helicopters on combat assaults together. I was flying behind him one day. The first month he was there, his aircraft was fully loaded with ammunition and troops and fuel, and it was shot down right in front of my aircraft by a heavy machine gun. The engine was shot out. They made an emergency landing, but they crashed terribly in a deep rice paddy, turned upside down. Several of the troops were killed. The aircraft commander was knocked unconscious and wounded terribly. And my friend Bubba Segrist was also wounded, but he saved the aircraft commander. He got him out of the water and saved him. And we landed right after that and picked up the wounded and flew away. Anyway, when I was wounded, the last time I was wounded in Vietnam, when I woke up in the general hospital I was taken to in Can Tho, he was the first face I saw. He was there. He flew there. I was flying in a light fire team of attack helicopters. He was flying in the other light team, and we were on station. We'd run out of ammunition and fuel. We'd go back and rearm and refuel, and he would come on station. So what a wonderful guy he was, great friend, and I stayed friends with him all his life. He got out of the Army because 3 months later he was shot through the knee and hand and had 3 of his fingers shot off. And they wouldn't let him fly anymore, so he got out. But you know what? Vietnam didn't let go of him. In September of last year, he died of Agent Orange-caused cancer. And it broke my heart. But he's still here. And that's where he'll be until I join him. So that's 2 personal stories. Maybe hits home a little better than telling you 1 million people have died for our country. I'll just close by saying this. If you know a veteran or an active duty member who's suffering from PTSD or depression or anxiety or any other like suicidal tendencies, please call 988, the VA crisis line, and select option 1 and report that he's in trouble and get him some help. Tell him or her also to go to the Ralph H. Johnson VA Medical Center, the best medical center of the 172 VA medical centers in the United States. The best. And they have the flagship mental health program there. I know, because they helped me. So anyway, God bless each of you, and God bless our veterans. God bless especially our veterans who are gone, and God bless the families of veterans. And thank you for allowing me to speak again this year, and that's all I have to say.